Your brother James is the natural choice to handle the family estate, my father announced during our weekly Sunday dinner, not even bothering to look in my direction. He has the right mindset for business. I sat there, fork suspended midair, processing his words. At 32, I'd spent the last decade managing successful restoration projects across New England, while my younger brother could barely keep his checking account balanced. My name is Eleanor Mitchell, and this wasn't the first time my parents had chosen James over me. It was just the most expensive. Dad, I started, keeping my voice steady. I have more experience in property management and… honey, my mother interrupted, patting my hand like I was still 12. James is more suited for this responsibility. You're too emotional about the estate. Besides, you're always so busy with your little renovation projects. Little renovation projects. Right, because restoring historic mansions and turning them into profitable boutique hotels was just a hobby. James smirked from across the table, already scrolling through his phone. Don't worry, sis. I'll let you visit the estate sometimes. Maybe you can plant some flowers or something. The estate they were so casually discussing wasn't just any property. It was Willow Creek, our family's historic mansion and grounds that had been in our family for 5 generations. The same estate where I'd spent countless hours with our grandfather, learning every secret passage, every creaking floorboard, every story behind each antique piece. When did you make this decision? I asked, though I already knew the answer. The hushed conversations, the mysterious meetings with lawyers, the way they'd been excluding me from family discussions for weeks. It's been in the works for a while, my father replied, finally looking at me. The papers will be signed tomorrow. James will take over as primary heir and estate manager. Tomorrow. They hadn't even planned to tell me until after it was done. I thought about the leather-bound notebook hidden in my apartment, the one Grandpa had given me 6 months before he passed away. Read it when the time is right, he'd said, with that knowing twinkle in his eye. I'd been too grief-stricken to open it then, but maybe now was the time. Well, I said, standing up from the table, I hope you've all made the right choice. Don't be dramatic, Elle, James called after me. It's just business. Just business. Like when they used my college fund to bail out James's failed startup, or when they'd given him Grandma's vintage car collection because he'd appreciate it more. That evening, as I sat in my apartment's window seat, I finally opened Grandpa's notebook. Inside, written in his elegant handwriting, was everything I needed to know about Willow Creek, including details about the estate that my parents had apparently forgotten. The first page contained a letter. My dearest Eleanor, if you're reading this, then your parents have probably done exactly what I feared they would. They've forgotten the most important thing about Willow Creek, its true ownership structure. You see, my clever girl, while your parents believe they control the estate, the truth is more complicated. Years ago, foreseeing this very situation, I created a separate trust. The main house and public grounds may belong to the family, but the estate's most valuable assets, the historic library, the art collection, and the North Woods with their valuable timber rights, are all held in a private trust. A trust that names you, my dedicated apprentice, as the sole trustee. Your parents never bothered to read the fine print, always too busy indulging James to pay attention to the details. But you, Eleanor, you always understood the value of paying attention. The notebook in your hands contains everything you need to know: property boundaries, account numbers, and most importantly, the contact information for Mr. Harrison, my attorney who handles the trust. Use this information wisely, my dear. Sometimes the best revenge is simply letting others realize their own mistakes. With love and faith in you, Grandpa William. I read the letter 3 times, my hands shaking slightly. All those hours spent with Grandpa, learning about the estate's history, walking the grounds, studying the property maps, he'd been preparing me all along. My phone buzzed with a text from James. Don't be jealous, sis. I'll take good care of your little garden plots. I smiled, running my finger over Grandpa's signature. James had no idea that his precious inheritance was about to become a lot less impressive. The estate's main house was beautiful, certainly, but without the library's priceless first editions, the art collection's masterpieces, or the income from the timber rights, it was just a very expensive piece of real estate with massive maintenance costs. I picked up my phone and dialed Mr. Harrison's number. It was time to let karma take its course. Harrison Legal Office, a crisp voice answered. Hello, this is Eleanor Mitchell. I believe my grandfather, William Mitchell left something in your care for me. Ah, Miss Mitchell. We've been expecting your call. The next morning, I sat in Mr. Harrison's office, surrounded by stacks of legal documents. Each page revealed more of Grandpa's brilliant foresight. The trust wasn't just comprehensive, it was ironclad. Your grandfather was quite thorough, Mr. Harrison said, adjusting his glasses. He specifically structured this trust to activate when the main estate changed hands. Shall we proceed with the notification process? I checked my watch. 10:45 a.m. My parents and James would be at the main estate right now, probably celebrating their signing ceremony. Yes, I replied. It's time. Mr. Harrison picked up his phone and dialed. I could hear my father's booming voice answer on speaker. Mr. Mitchell, this is Theodore Harrison. I'm calling regarding some urgent matters about Willow Creek Estate. Could you gather all involved parties? We need to discuss some overlooked details. 30 minutes later, I walked into Willow Creek's main study. The celebration champagne was still out, glasses half full. James lounged in Grandpa's old leather chair, feet propped on the antique desk. My parents stood by the window, their faces darkening when they saw me enter with Mr. Harrison. What's she doing here? James demanded. We've already signed the papers. Yes, Mr. Harrison said smoothly, you've signed the papers for the main estate. However, there are some additional matters we need to address. He opened his briefcase and began laying out documents. You see, William Mitchell Sr. created a separate trust 15 years ago. This trust holds significant portions of what you probably assume is part of your inheritance, Mr. James. My mother stepped forward, frowning. What are you talking about? What trust? The Mitchell Heritage Trust, I said quietly. Grandpa created it to protect the estate's most valuable assets. Mr. Harrison nodded, pointing to specific sections of the documents. The trust includes the entire library collection, valued at approximately $12 million, the complete art collection, worth roughly $8 million, and the Northwoods timber rights, which generate annual revenues of about $900,000. The color drained from James's face. But that's all part of Willow Creek. I own Willow Creek now. No, Mr. Harrison corrected, you own the main house and the immediate grounds. The assets I've mentioned are separately held by the trust, which has its own trustee. My father's face reddened. Well, as head of the family, I demand to know who this trustee is. That would be me, I said, meeting his gaze steadily. The silence that followed was deafening. James jumped up from behind the desk, scattering papers. This is ridiculous. Elle doesn't know anything about managing assets like these. I pulled out my tablet, opening a detailed inventory I'd been working on. Actually, I've been cataloging the library's first editions for years. I also coordinated the restoration of 6 paintings in the collection last summer, and I've been reviewing the timber management reports every quarter. You knew about this, my mother whispered. All this time? No, I replied honestly. I just found out last night. But Grandpa spent years teaching me about every aspect of the estate. I thought he was just sharing his passion, but he was preparing me. My father slammed his hand on the desk. This is unacceptable. We'll contest it. I wouldn't advise that, Mr. Harrison interjected. The trust is quite solid. William was very careful in its construction. Contesting it would only result in expensive legal fees, and I assure you, no change in outcome. James slumped back in his chair, the reality finally hitting him. The maintenance costs for the main house. I was counting on the timber income to cover that. Yes, I said, unable to keep a hint of satisfaction from my voice. The main house costs about $600,000 annually to maintain. Without the trust's income, that's quite a burden. But I'm sure you have a plan for that, given your business expertise. My mother turned to me, tears forming in her eyes. Eleanor, please. We can work something out. We're family. Family? I repeated. Was it family when you gave my college fund to James? Or when you excluded me from every major family decision? No, Mom, this isn't about family. It's about respecting Grandpa's wishes and protecting his legacy. I stood up, gathering my documents. Mr. Harrison, I believe we're done here. Please proceed with the formal transfer of trustee responsibilities. As I walked toward the door, James called out, You can't just leave us with this mess. I turned back one last time. Don't worry, brother. You can visit the library sometimes, maybe read some books about financial management. The look on their faces as I left the study would have made Grandpa proud. Not because of their shock or distress, but because finally someone was going to manage his beloved collection the way it deserved. Walking down the familiar hallway, I ran my hand along the wood paneling, feeling the smooth finish Grandpa and I had restored together years ago. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about honoring his vision and protecting what he'd spent his life building. My phone buzzed with a text from Mr. Harrison. Your grandfather would be very proud. Phase 1 complete. Shall we proceed with Phase 2? I smiled, typing back, yes. Let's show them what proper estate management looks like. Over the next 6 months, I threw myself into managing the trust with the same dedication I'd learned from Grandpa. Under my stewardship, the library was open for guided tours, generating additional revenue while preserving the collection. I partnered with a prestigious art gallery to showcase select pieces, bringing national attention to our family's collection. Meanwhile, James struggled with the main house. Without the trust's income, he'd been forced to open parts of the estate for weddings and events, something our parents had always considered beneath the family's dignity. But dignity doesn't pay property taxes or maintenance costs. One rainy Tuesday morning, I received an unexpected call from my mother. The roof is leaking in the east wing, she said without preamble. James says we can't afford the repairs. I glanced out my office window at the restored gardener's cottage I converted into the trust's headquarters. That's unfortunate. The east wing houses some valuable architectural features. Eleanor, she sighed, can't you help? This is still your family home. Actually, it's James's home now. Remember? He's more suited for the responsibility. The silence on her end spoke volumes. Finally, she said softly, we were wrong. About a lot of things. I let her words hang there for a moment before responding. Yes, you were. But this isn't about being right or wrong anymore. It's about competence and respect. That evening, I walked through the library checking on the climate control systems we'd recently upgraded. The scent of leather and old paper reminded me of afternoons spent here with Grandpa, learning the stories behind each precious volume. A text from Mr. Harrison interrupted my nostalgia. James is looking to sell some of the estate's original furniture. Buyers coming tomorrow. I smiled, knowing what was coming next. Another detail Grandpa had cleverly woven into the trust. Any original furnishings were protected as part of the historic collection, regardless of their location in the house. The next morning, I arrived at the main house just as the antique dealers were pulling up. James stood on the front steps, looking considerably less polished than he had 6 months ago. You can't stop me from selling these pieces, he said as I approached. They're in my part of the house. I handed him a document. Actually, I can. Check the trust provisions. All original furnishings are part of the historic collection, regardless of their location. The dealers, sensing tension, quietly returned to their cars and drove away. James crumpled the paper in his fist. How long are you going to punish us? This isn't punishment, James. This is conservation. Something you would understand if you'd spent any time learning about the estate instead of just expecting to control it. Later that afternoon, my father requested a meeting. I agreed to see him in my office, where he sat uncomfortably in a visitor's chair, looking out of place without his usual air of authority. The estate is drowning in maintenance costs, he admitted. James, he's not handling it well. I'm aware. Your grandfather, he hesitated. He knew what he was doing, didn't he? Setting this up. I nodded, thinking of the detailed notes Grandpa had left, predicting almost exactly how events would unfold. He understood something you and Mom never did. This estate isn't about power or status. It's about stewardship and legacy. My father looked around my office, taking in the meticulously organized files, the restoration plans, the carefully tracked budgets. You're doing a good job, Eleanor. Better than we would have. I know. He stood up, straightening his jacket. Is there any way we can fix this? I pulled out a folder I prepared weeks ago, waiting for this moment. Actually, there is. Grandpa included provisions for integrating the trust back with the main estate under certain conditions. What conditions? Joint management, equal say in decisions, and a formal acknowledgement of past mistakes. 2 weeks later, we all sat in the main study, the same room where everything had changed 6 months ago. James, looking humbled, signed the new agreement first. My parents followed, officially restructuring the estate's management to include me as an equal partner. "There's one more thing," I said, pulling out a familiar leather notebook. Grandpa left detailed plans for expanding the estate's educational programs. He believed Willow Creek could be more than just a family home. It could be a center for learning and preservation. My mother picked up the notebook, running her fingers over Grandpa's handwriting. "He always did see more than the rest of us." "He saw me," I said quietly, "when none of you did." James cleared his throat. "I'm sorry, Elle, for everything." Looking around the study, at my chastened family and the estate that had brought us both apart and together, I felt Grandpa's presence strongly. "Let's just focus on doing right by his legacy," I said, "together this time." As we walked the grounds later that day, I could almost hear Grandpa's laugh on the breeze. He'd known all along that sometimes the best way to bring a family together was to let them fall apart first. Karma, it seemed, had simply been waiting for the right moment to teach its lesson.